Good evening and welcome to the beautiful, historical Marionette Theater. Tonight we're visiting a mid to late 90s drama, mystery, sci-fi with a little bit of contact from another realm or something like that. Hold on to your seats. Go ahead and get to them. The show is about to begin. Well, good evening, Toppie. How are you this fine night, sir?
I've got a little bit of deja vu, but I'm good.
Yeah? You know, it's almost nice enough out to have the windows open, but we got cooked not long ago, and so I'm still hiding from the sun. But,
Okay, well, I'm recording with windows open.
Ooh.
And it's just started to cool off enough that the air coming in is nice and cool.
Mm-hmm. So, Toppie, it is June, and, as they say, June is busting out all over, and, of course, one of the things that June is known for is gay pride in this part of the world. So, before we talk about the film that we're going to discuss tonight, we're going to just briefly touch on this time of year and maybe some movie-going experiences. So, do you remember maybe either your first Pride Parade or maybe the first time you went to a movie with a certain someone?
Sure. I think my first Pride Parade was in Rochester, and it maybe a couple of parades in a couple of years, and then I got to attend the really big one in Washington, the first really big one in Washington, and that was huge. And then a couple of years later, I went to the second one in Washington, which I think was the last march that had the complete quilt.
Oh.
I think so.
Well, I didn't get to go to my first Pride Parade until I moved around a bit. I lived in Dallas, Texas for a year. You'd have thought I would have caught something there, but no. It wasn't until I was living in Colorado that I went to Denver's Pride Parade, which is ginormous, I will have you know. The parade route starts about a mile or two away from the ending fairgrounds, and the end of the parade route is out in front of the state capitol building. There is a lovely little park there, and they have it set up as a fairgrounds, so there's plenty of food and drink and all sorts of craft tables and any little independent business under the sun you can think of, and there's even live music. Mm-hmm. And
let me ask you, so in my first march, I had my boyfriend at the time, and we held hands as we were walking. And I want to know if you had a similar experience. I don't know if you marched alone or by yourself, but I remember I don't know what the word is for it. It was uneasy. Being that visible as we were holding hands and walking down the street. It wasn't frightening, but it was uneasy. I remember that. And, of course, every march after that, after a while, you didn't even think about it. But the first one, I do remember feeling very self-conscious and uneasy.
You know, I think I was probably a little uneasy, but in my situation, I had the advantage of not being in my home state, so I wasn't going to be running into anyone I knew. But, it was quite a splendid thing to behold, because Colorado, not that long ago, I want to say maybe 5 years ago now, elected their first openly gay governor. So, how about them apples? And,
right.
And since we're talking about movies, because that's what we do, I'll just give an honorable mention. I remember the first time I went to the movies where I saw a gay film. It was in college, and I went and saw Kevin Kline and Debbie Reynolds in In and Out.
I forgot Debbie Reynolds was in that. I do remember seeing that movie. It was a lot of fun. Gosh, what was my first? Boy, it might have been Boys in the Band.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that was probably it. It must have been Boys in the Band. And that wasn't a picnic.
No. I have seen it, and there's actually been in more recent years a remake, but I don't think that the male lead in tonight's movie was in that. I'm pretty sure he wasn't. But the other reason that I saw In and Out, because of course it had Tom Selleck without the mustache.
I forgot he was in it.
Oh, goodness. Now, it goes without saying that I hope they paid him handsomely for that role, because you would not know it was him without the trademark stash.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It makes you wonder why they didn't give him that mustache. I don't know. But,
well, speaking of having a good time, I hear our senior showgirl has managed to make it in tonight. Are you there, Gertie?
Yeah, I'm here. I got rainbow drinks and I just brought all kinds of, rainbow things. Huh?
Looks like someone's been to the party store.
Yeah, maybe. By the way, you guys are paying me back for all this stuff.
Okay, well, Toppie, it's your turn to write the check.
Yeah, okay.
Gertie, I hate to pry because I know you're a very private person, but
yes, I am.
But you're one to tell us when you have a missed opportunity. Now, is it true that you had something going on with the leading man in this film, Mr. Matthew McConaughey?
Well, this was way before he started to get all stanky McStank, you understand? Well, we had a few dalliances, you might say, and he was a cute young thing, Anyways, I probably shouldn't say any more until my autobiography,
Okay.
Tell-all. It's a tell-all.
Yes, those NDAs there that our publishers have us sign, which stands for non-disclosure agreement for those not in the know. Well,
yeah, that's what that means.
Well, Madame, if you will get those cute little tootsies down to the stage, we'd like to tell the folks what we're watching tonight.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
There she goes. A scientist and a dreamer. She was a gifted student, but lost her parents early. In spite of this reality, her talents have gotten her far. Now, Ellie spends her time looking for answers amongst the stars. That is until one day she's faced with losing her job. As she rises to the occasion, she stumbles across the opportunity of a lifetime to make contact with beings not of this earth. Just when Ellie thinks she's ready to make the ultimate sacrifice, in comes a handsome stranger. Will she fall for the oldest trick in the book, or will she reach for those stars? Grab a telescope and a box of crap. Fellas,
What do you get when you take a dash to the silver screen? A pinch of golden oldies and a smidgen of streaming. It's time for Matinee Minutia with your hosts DJ and Toppie.
Oh, so we're back in the 90s, and, I hate to pop anyone's balloon, but that was more than 25 years ago, so, there's been an anniversary for this film, I'm sure.
Well, I suppose. Is it today? Is it this year?
Actually, I think it might have been last year. So we're
last year.
Yeah, like it's like 26 years ago now.
Okay. Wow. It's hard to believe. As a matter of fact, so long ago, DJ, set the stage for us and tell us what was happening in 1997 in the U.S. of A.
U.S. history in 1997. Well, back then I was freshly out of high school, but Bill Clinton, the 42nd U.S. president, began his second term in office. In space, the astronauts from the Space Shuttle Discovery began the tune-up and repair work on the Hubble Space Telescope, a longly anticipated mission, and I remember staying up late at night and watching it, and it was like just watching paint dry because they had to move so slowly with those delicate tools. So in 97, the United States government acknowledges existence of the secret, in quotations, war in Laos. That's over there in Asia, and dedicated the Laos Memorial among and other secret war veterans. President Clinton issued a formal apology to the surviving victims of the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male and their families. And there was actually a movie about the Tuskegee air program. I'm forgetting the title of it. Might have actually just been the Tuskegee Project. But also in 97, the United States Department of the Treasury unveiled a new $50 bill. This one was meant to be more difficult to counterfeit. So, it probably looked more like Canadian money. In movie news, Walt Disney, the Mouse House, brought out their 35th feature film, Hercules. And it was loosely based on a legendary mythological hero of the same name. It was released to positive reviews, but it underperformed at the box office in comparison to its most recent predecessors. Pay attention, folks. That probably means we're due to talk about it someday. All right, so in 97 also, Men in Black was released in theaters. The first of at least 3 films, some say more. NASA's Pathfinder space probe landed on the surface of Mars. That was a big one. And also in 97, Steve Jobs, the head guy that was in charge of Apple, well, he left and he came back again. And it was announced at Macworld in Boston. At the same time, Microsoft bought 150 million shares of the financially troubled Apple computer at the time. So, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And in October of that year, the first color photograph appeared on the front page of the New York Times. Can you believe it, Toppie?
Well, no, I can't. But, no, I can't. I can't believe that. That's hard to believe. I
wonder what they chose to be their first color ad. And rounding things out in 97, in the world of telecom, because, we used to have cords and things used to be on the wall for us to talk to our friends. Well, back then, WorldCom and MCI, which was that long-distance company that gave us friends and family. The Star Trek actors used to talk about their long-distance plan that they used to use to call each other. Well, they announced a $37 billion merger to form MCI WorldCom, which at the time was the largest merger in U.S. history. And then in movie news, rounding out 97, James Cameron's Titanic, the highest-grossing film of all time, came out in 97. It was the highest-grossing film until James Cameron's Avatar in 2009. Now, just an aside, I remember when Titanic came out, Toppie, and I remember my ex had a thing for younger gentlemen. Now, get your mind out of the gutter. I was legal. I was over 21 even. But I remember at the time thinking that Leonardo DiCaprio looked underage in that film. Now, come to find out, in more recent years, I've looked this up, and he and I are about the same age.
Okay. Phew, that's a relief.
Yeah. So, it was almost long enough ago that someone might have darkened a doorstep, but who of fame left us in 97, Toppie? Who were there celebrities that passed that year?
Well, that year we saw the passing of Robert Mitchum at 80. John Denver, American musician at 54. His plane ran out of gas, don't you know? Don Messick, okay, voice actor for Hanna-Barbera mostly. He's known for doing Scooby-Doo. He does a lot of snickering animals and animals that don't really talk, but they somehow talk, like Scooby-Doo. And he did Hoppy in the Flintstones. He did Astro in the Jetsons. He did Muttley in the Wacky Races. He did Boo Bear. Well, Boo Bear talked. He did the Sebastian the Cat, a cat that snickered in Josie and the Pussycats. And he did the, seems like there was another snickering thing. Maybe Hampton J. Pig in Tiny Toon. I don't know. But anyways, he also did Dr. Benton Quest and Johnny Quest. Far from snickering. And also we saw the passing of Audra Lindley, with an American theater and television actress known for her role of the landlord's wife on Three's Company. So she was Mrs. Roper, right?
She was.
Okay.
All right. So the program we're talking about tonight was a movie. It went out to theaters. So, there were some date nights that took place. And just to get your mind into the perspective of what was competing for your dollar back then, what was in maybe your attention, the top of the box office. So, Contact. Well, that's actually a little bit of a surprise. We're usually a fan of the underdog here. But somehow, Contact actually got around the top. It was number 13. So it brought in $99 million. So, they were able to, Jodie Foster was able to cash her check. Right. But in the top of the box office that year, number one was Men in Black with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. And it also, of course, brought us Mr. Tony Shalhoub, who later on did Monk on USA.
All right. Now, if Titanic came out, wouldn't that have been the number one movie?
You would think so, but...
It must have been. It must have been.
It hit it big, but it wasn't in the very top three. Let's see now. The number two in the theaters was a sequel. It was The Lost World, which was a Jurassic Park film. Of course, that had Jeff Goldblum and Julianne Moore, and it brought in $229 million. So, it was enough to make at least another couple of more. And, since Contact actually did fairly okay, to give you an idea what was just one better, the aforementioned Disney film, Hercules, that brought in $99.1 million. It had the voices of Tate Donovan and one of the stars of tonight's film, Mr. James Woods. And just a rung below Contact, at number 14, is a film with somebody who could have stinky feet, too, Mr. Tom Cruise. Renee Zellweger and up-and-coming child actor Jonathan Lipnicki, say that 3 times fast. 14 was Jerry Maguire at $88.2 million.
All right.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about the director.
Well, we actually have a trailer for tonight's film.
Yeah.
That's okay. So, this the actual trailer for the film has quite a bit of visual elements in it. So just to set this up, when you do see the trailer, the very beginning of it has Jodie Foster as Dr. Ellie Arroway sitting in the field listening to the radio telescope with her headphones. So when this trailer begins, it's after that silence and the introductions.
This morning's detection of an unidentified radio source from deep space can neither be confirmed nor denied.
Whatever it is, it ain't local.
Position
I checked interferometry somewhere in Lyra, I think.
Vega?
Can't be. It's only 26 light years away.
I want all these people out of here.
Your having sent this announcement all over the world may well constitute a breach of national security.
Boy, this isn't a person-to-person call. This may be an announcement to get our attention.
The president's called an emergency meeting.
You know those interlaced frames that we thought were noise? This has structure.
I'm going to recommend to the president that we militarize this project immediately.
There's no reason to believe that their intentions are hostile.
There's no proof of that.
Why don't they just speak English?
Mathematics is the only truly universal language, Senator. Buried within the message itself is the key to decoding it.
Those look like engineering schematics, almost like blueprints.
It is our belief that the message contains instructions for building some kind of machine.
A machine?
It might turn out to be some kind of a transport.
Transport? The fact is, you don't know what it does. It could be anything.
Nobody's saying this isn't dangerous.
They're gonna build it.
Who gets to go, though?
It's complicated, Ellie.
Who gets to go?
By doing this, you're willing to risk your life. You're willing to give your life and die for this. Why?
Ooh, I would have been on the edge of my seat. Mm-hmm. So, Toppie, tell us a little bit about the person behind the camera who made this movie, the director.
So that would be Robert Lee Zemeckis, and you know him because he was the director of some very well-known films, starting with Romancing the Stone in '84, Back to the Future, actually all three of them between '85 and '90. He was the guy that was behind directing Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And then Death Becomes Her in '92, all big hits. And then, of course, he's known for Forrest Gump in '94, and he won the Academy Award for Best Director for that one. And that movie also won Best Picture. So he graduated from USC in '73, and he took some top student awards at USC for his student film, A Field of Honor. One of his first big breaks was writing a script for Kolchak the Night Stalker in 1975. That's a kind of a Monster of the Week kind of TV show. And it starred Darren McGavin. And he wrote the episode titled The Chopper, which was a takeoff of the Headless Horseman legend, but this was a guy who didn't have a head, and he rode a motorcycle and carried a sword. So Zemeckis later came to the attention of none other than Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg became Zemeckis' mentor and executive produced his first two films, I Want to Hold Your Hand in '78 and Used Cars in 1980. Both of these movies were received well critically, but they were not commercial blockbusters by any means. And Zemeckis, unfortunately, kind of gained a reputation for writing scripts that everyone thought were great, but somehow just didn't translate into movies people wanted to see. And the director was kind of jobless until 1984, when Michael Douglas hired him to direct his movie Romancing the Stone, which was expected to be a flop, really. Nobody had too much hope for it. And actually, it became a big hit, a sleeper hit. It was out in the public eye for quite some time, and it just more and more people started to go and see it. After Romancing, Zemeckis finally had the clout to direct his time-traveling screenplay starring Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future. Of course, that was wildly successful, and he did 2 sequels for it. And then, of course, Death Becomes Her and Forrest Gump, and so on and so forth. Suddenly Zemeckis was very high in demand as far as people wanting, and he was able to choose at that point any projects he wanted to do after that. So, A Tale of Rags to Riches, Robert Zemeckis.
Now, what would you say is probably your favorite of those that he made, Toppie?
Oh, I would have to say maybe a movie that's not mentioned here, but gee whiz, I think he did it. Didn't he do Castaway?
Oh, you're probably right. That was a good film, and it was actually a very different role for Tom Hanks at the time.
Yeah, I actually think that might be one of my favorites. Forrest Gump is great, but I think I really, well, actually, Contact, maybe right up there, but one of those two.
I would have to agree that Contact is really up there, and I love Death Becomes Her. It's it's a cult classic, so it's probably due for an honorable mention someday with us. But one of the films that's on that list that I am due for a rewatch is Cocoon, because it has the incomparable Jessica Tandy in it, and that lady, she is right up there in my book with Ruth Gordon.
All right. Great. Well, I like her too. I don't know. Someone told me Gertie's going to be serving drinks. Is that now or later?
Oh, well, we are at about the halfway mark in the show. So we're going to step on over here, and Gertie is serving up some cocktails. She said that they're just say gay, which I guess you're not allowed to do in some states, but I don't think I'd want to live there, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, say gay cocktails, kids. Tequila, watermelon juice, lime, lemon juice, grenadine, and, popping a lime wheel for garnish.
Ooh.
Anyways, they're lovely, and I've mixed up some for everyone. Mostly me.
Ooh, so it's like you're going to take a good picture instead of cheese. You say gay. All right.
Yeah, say gay.
So for your listening enjoyment, we're going to reel on out Texas Tammy, or at least that's what I like to call her. This is the Dallas Morning News personality, Bobby Wyant. And, well, if you're late to the party, not that long ago, we discussed a film at the beginning of Jodie Foster's career, The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. And, well, Miss Bobby kind of asked some questions that were a little appropriate of a young adult. But I guess they must have paid Jodie to appear on camera because she came back for an interview. And here it is.
And another spectacular performance in Contact.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's a great movie. I really love this film. It's incredible. It's amazing how Robert Zemeckis was able to make this film so exciting and such a great adventure. A real just summer blast with an incredible ride at the end and all that exciting stuff. And then to really have it be about a personal story about people. To have such a strong intelligence to it and to have it be so human and so emotional. I don't know how he did it. I would have had to choose one or the other.
Some of the final scenes where you are in what you people call the pod.
Yes.
Now, what was going on there? Was it a gimbal to set, or what were they doing with all that vibration and everything?
So many things. There were so many sets and so many chairs and so many different pods, each one that had a different reason. It took a very long time to shoot out that sequence, and it probably was the hardest part of the movie because I was all by myself. And there were no other actors around, and I was strapped to a chair, and usually there was blue screens around me, and I had no idea what I was looking at. So not only that, it was about an hour and a half to 2 hours in between takes. So I was really having a hard time there. But it just goes to show you, I was just absolutely surprised when I saw it. The magic of movies, how incredible the vision of the film can change what the actual reality was.
Well, the whole setting was just magnificent. Now, for you, the actress, going through all that rock and roll stuff, did it ever bother you physically?
Yeah, I had a bad moment there. I had about 2 days. 2 days in the third day, luckily, was a Saturday on a weekend, and I woke up and had a vertigo and sort of nausea and stuff, and I realized I was really kind of having an inner ear drama there. So I asked them to, maybe we could move on to another sequence before we went back to that one, because I was really having a hard time. And then, of course, I had seen that 60 Minutes thing on violent shaking and how they use it for torture in Israel. And I thought, wait, this isn't good. What about my brain cells?
Well, you're smart enough. You could lose a few and still be ahead of most of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
There is a scene also where you're assimilating weightlessness. Now, were you actually in weightlessness, or how did they do that?
There is no way on the planet Earth to have weightlessness. You can simulate it a little bit in water, but that's the closest we can get. And obviously, we couldn't shoot it in water. You know, you have to try everything that you can. I saw a lot of film on weightlessness, and spoke to a lot of people who had been weightless and who had been in that wonderful aircraft that that NASA has. We just tried to do the best we could, and I guess it works.
Yes, it does. Well, it resembles very much that scene in Apollo 13 where the guys were actually weightless in that aircraft.
Yes, we had a lot of people that had worked on that movie, and they told us that vomiting was a big thing in there. And that was pretty much the only sensation they remember is a bad one in the stomach.
You know what they called it, the vomit comet.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Jodie, once again, it's great to see you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm glad you did.
On so many levels. It's very intelligent, very provocative, but at the same time, a very exciting film.
Thank you.
And it's good to see you.
You too.
Take care.
Take care.
And I won't see you again unless they pay me more. So, we have a boatload of people that made up the cast of this film. And I'll start things off by talking about our leading lady who we just heard of interview with. So, Jodie Foster, who plays Dr. Ellie Arroway in Contact. She was born in the City of Angels, Los Angeles. She began in acting at the age of 7. And she appeared in commercials for Crest toothpaste. And, I want to say it was a suntan lotion. I'm forgetting the name right now.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I don't know.
I want to say Tropicana, but that's orange juice. Anyways, our first film was Napoleon and Samantha, which came out in 1972. And it had Mr. Michael Douglas and Will Geer, the kindly grandpa from the Waltons. Foster was injured by a lion and still bears the scars to this day. Contact was her 13th film. So she's...
No. Not
30th. Oh, goodness, I stumbled. 30th film. Hi. Woo. Gertie, I'll have another. In the 5 years leading up to this film, Foster would appear in 3 more films, including Summersby with Richard Gere, and then a film with Mel Gibson and James Garner, Maverick. Now, the film just prior to Contact was Nell, which featured Liam Neeson and Natasha Richardson. And her film after was Anna and the King, which was based upon the musical The King and I. However, this did not have any music. Came out in 1999 with up-and-coming actor Chow Yun-fat. In the years that would follow Contact, Foster would appear in another 3 films, including, the aforementioned Anna and the King, and The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys. Now, this is a film that stars the brother of the Home Alone kid, not Macaulay, but Kieran Culkin. Also starred Jenna Malone, who was young Ellie Arroway in Contact, and Vincent D'Onofrio. That was in 2002, The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys. Then also in 2002, she was in a film with Kristen Stewart. You know, that up-and-coming actress that was in the movies about teenage vampires? Well, and also Forrest Whitaker and up-and-coming Jared Leto. She was in Panic Room in 2002. And Jodie Foster continues to work in film, both in front of and behind the camera. Her latest film was in 2021, and it was called The Mauritanian, which also starred Benedict Cumberbatch. And this was a legal drama about a West African Muslim suspect in 9/11 who fights for his release after years, plural, years of detainment by the U.S. without charges. To date, Jodie Foster has 81 acting credits and received 2 Oscars even before she was 30.
Right, and she received an Oscar for What's the movie where she was a rape victim?
Oh, was that Nell? Or
No.
Oh.
It was a trial movie. She received an Oscar for that, and then she received an Oscar for Silence of the Lambs, I believe. That's correct. One thing Foster doesn't do well is playing dummies. You notice most of the roles she's in, she usually plays a very smart person. The closest I could think of as to her playing kind of a dummy is she was horribly miscast for Maverick. What a terrible movie, and she was so not right for that part. And it's because she was playing a floozy, dopey girl. That's not what Foster should be cast in.
Oh, that's a throwback, though. Didn't she get her career started her career in Taxi Driver?
But she didn't. She was a very smart. That was a very smart character. She wasn't a dummy.
I know.
But yeah. So let's talk about Matthew McConaughey, her co-star. He played Palmer Joss. He was born in '69. His breakout role was a supporting performance in the coming-of-age comedy Dazed and Confused in '93. And he had a number of supporting roles, but his first success as a leading man came in the legal drama A Time to Kill, 1996. That was a really good movie. His career progressed with lead roles in Contact and the historical drama Amistad and the war film U-571. That was in 2000. And he also started appearing in the 2000s in a string of romantic comedies, such as The Wedding Planner, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Failure to Launch, Fool's Gold, and Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. All of those were in the 2001 to 2009, and it kind of established him as a sex symbol. All those movies. He took a 2-year hiatus from acting in 2011, and when he came back, he was appearing in more dramatic roles, beginning with the legal drama The Lincoln Lawyer in 2012, and he gained even wider praise for his role as a stripper in Magic Mike and a fugitive in Mud. But it was McConaughey's portrayal of Ron Woodruff, a cowboy diagnosed with AIDS, in the biopic Dallas Buyers Club in 2013 that earned him his the greatest praise and accolades, including winning the Academy Award for Best Actor. He followed it up with a supporting role in The Wolf of Wall Street, where he starred as Rust Cole in the first season. Oh, he also had a starring role as Rust Cole in the first season of HBO's crime anthology series True Detective in 2014. He was nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award for that. Most recently, you would have perhaps, if you were a follower of the Yellowstone series with Kevin Costner, and it seems like everybody is, you might have heard that while Kevin Costner is going to be gone, there is going to be a new series related to Yellowstone, and McConaughey will be in the new title role.
Alrighty, so another member of the cast who some might say is actually an even bigger star, if you can imagine, is the guy who played the eccentric entrepreneur that sort of saves the day, S.R. Haddon. And I'm talking about none other than John Hurt. Mr. Hurt was born in the United Kingdom, and he had a strict upbringing. His father was a clergyman, which meant that he was elected to a position in the church. And the family lived opposite a cinema. That's theater for us Americans, or movie house. But he was not allowed to visit the movies. However, watching theater was considered fine and encouraged particularly by his mother, who took him regularly to the Repertory Theatre in Cleethorpes. Ooh, must have been the nearest big town. His parents disliked his later acting ambitions and encouraged him to become an art teacher instead. He was also not permitted to mix with the local children because, in his parents' view, they were too common. He began acting in the early 60s, and after his first decade in the industry, he would land the role of the executive officer, or XO for us, in that short form there, who ended up being an android by the name of Kane in Ridley Scott's Alien from '79, which also starred Sigourney Weaver in the lead, and another member of tonight's film's cast, Mr. Tom Skerritt. Contact, tonight's film, was John Hurt's 68th film. This guy was making movies in his sleep. In the 5 years before, he would appear in 14 films, including a film in '95 with Jeff Bridges and Diane Lane called Wild Bill. Also in '95, he starred in a film with Liam Neeson and Jessica Lange called Rob Roy. And in '93, he starred in a film with Uma Thurman and Keanu Reeves called Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. Sounds like a country song. In the 5 years after, Hurt would appear in 17 more films, including a film in '98 with Brenda Blythen, one of our favorites here. It was a film called Night Train. And in '99, he starred with Matrix heartthrob Carrie Ann Moss and up-and-coming comic actor Sean Wayans in New Blood. And then many will remember him for a cameo in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which is the first installment in the series in 2001. In the last 4 years of his life, which, of course, it should be noted that Hurt was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2015, he appeared in 18 films in the last 4 years of his life, including a film with Chris Evans and Tilda Swinton, a really good sci-fi thriller called Snowpiercer. It's a post-apocalypse film. Check it out. And before his passing in 2017, at the age of 77, Hurt's last appearance in a theatrical release was in the 2016 film Jackie, which is about the former First Lady and widow of JFK, starring Natalie Portman in the lead. By the time of his passing, Hurt had a total of 98 acting credits.
And I know he did some stage work too. I don't know if it was on Broadway or just in the UK, but he portrayed the Elephant Man in The Elephant Man. I think it was on Broadway, to great acclaim. Mm-hmm. So the full cast of tonight's movie was Tom Skerritt had a significant role. James Wood was a nasty senator or congressman, and James Fitchner sounds like a sneezed. Is in it. Who did he play? Do we know? I don't know.
Oh, goodness. Well, let's take a look-see. You go ahead and talk about the next guy, and I'll look that up.
All right. Well, then, this crazy nut job is played by Jake Busey, as only the son of Gary Busey could. My God, in fact, if nobody told me, I would have just said, yeah, that's Gary Busey in that movie. They look so much alike. But it's his son, Jake, and he plays this great villain who's sort of, what do we want to say, sort of a cult leader. And he really shakes things up.
Oh, yeah, he was an evangelist.
An evangelist, yeah.
Yes, and the guy that you were trying to think of is actually William Fichtner, and I've seen him on a few television programs, but this was the first I had ever seen him on screen. His character was actually a turn on comic nerd fandom. He was Kent Clark.
Okay.
But
this movie?
Yes. And he was the blind scientist with the gift for listening to fine details.
Yes. Yeah, I know. That's interesting. He played an interesting character. Sorry, I didn't recognize.
Oh, that's okay. Now, Toppie, I'm wondering, I'm sure that you have a different experience than I, but what was the first film that you had seen Tom Skerritt in?
Boy, I'm pretty sure it was Alien. That's the first thing I remember. And later I found out he was in an episode of Kolchak the Night Stalker that I since recognized him in. But really, I think it was Alien. I can't think of anything. If I saw him in something else, it would have been, again, a case of, who's that guy? I sure as hell don't know. And couldn't connect a name with him. It was after Alien, you could finally say, yeah, that guy's Tom Skerritt. But he was in many, he was in a lot of movies. He also did a TV series called Picket Fences.
Yeah, and now I actually had seen him in a film before this, but he's also quite famously known as playing the father figure in Julia Roberts' big breakout movie Steel Magnolias with Sally. I almost said yes, Field, not Struthers.
Yeah, he plays Sally Field's husband. Yeah, he's great in that.
Yeah, but the film that I saw Tom Skerritt in first, before I knew who he was and that he'd been in other things, was a little gem from the 80s, which starred the mom from Back to the Future, Leah Thompson, who in more recent years has gone behind the camera. She's directing nowadays. But Tom Skerritt was in a film called Space Camp. And what's terrific about that movie is that it stars director Steven Spielberg's future wife.
Okay.
So Toppie, Contact came out in 1997. Did you see it in theaters?
I did. I was looking forward to it because I've never read any of his books, but I was kind of a fan. I was a fan of Carl Sagan, who wrote the novel that the movie is based on. And because Pickle Hollow's, DJ just showed a copy of that book. Because I lived in Pickle Hollow, which is very close to Ithaca, New York. Ithaca was Carl Sagan's home when he taught at Cornell University, and kind of a local legend / hero. And we have a thing here in Ithaca where it's called the Carl Sagan Walk, and it's a map of the solar system, and you start at the sun and you walk until you get to all the planets, and it's measured in such a way that the measurement is accurate in terms of how close one planet is from another. And boy, you go past Mars, and the next time you get to a planet, well, once you get past Earth, I should say, the next time you get to the next planet, you just keep walking, and you start to get a feel of, wow, how far apart these planets are. Another thing, even before I knew what was who, when I was in grade school, there was this whole big old deal about this satellite being sent into space. And of course, I'm talking about Voyager. Is that what it was called? Right?
Yes.
Voyager. Yeah. It's the famous one that has the gold panel that has sounds recorded in it, and depictions of a man and a woman, and sounds from I guess every language on Earth, and the voices of children, blah blah blah. And I just remember that was a huge deal for some reason when I was in junior high, and it was like this big deal thing that was going on. I guess probably because Sagan was in Ithaca at that time, and it just was like a local connection. And so that's really what led me to go see the film. I wasn't a huge fan of Jodie Foster or anyone else in the movie. It was really Carl Sagan that brought me to see it, and I wasn't disappointed, and I was gobsmacked by the movie. It was thrilling, and it was wondrous, just wondrous.
You know, when this film came out, I was just starting college, so I wasn't really making a paycheck or anything to where I could take myself to the movies. In fact, I think the first time I saw Contact was a number of years later. But more importantly, when I was at the store buying my first DVD player, I had not even rented this yet. I knew that it was a movie I wanted to see. Jodie Foster was in it. So the first film on DVD I bought was Contact, and I was not disappointed. And, you know, as Toppie and I were talking about behind the curtain before the show, how we saw, I rented it because I couldn't find my copy. But, you know, Toppie, he's confessed to me that even though he's downsized in recent years, well, how did you see it?
Well, one of the few DVDs I didn't send to the secondhand store was Contact. So that's how much I like it. It has watchability times 100. Mm-hmm. And the best thing I like about it is it contrasts faith in God and faith in science. That's the movie right there. And that believing in either one, science or God, at the end of the day, it comes down to faith. Faith that the science is right, faith that yada yada, of course faith in God, and how this faith, you know, should be uniting people of opposite sides. Of course it doesn't, but McConaughey plays a person of faith, Foster plays a person of science, and even though they're briefly lovers for a time, they can't reconcile their differences in faith and science. And at the end of the movie, Foster I don't think she's entirely aware of it until it comes out of her mouth, but her belief in the science really comes down to, because I just believe it to be true. In other words, faith. And even she's surprised by that revelation. So I just think it's got gigantic themes. Its depiction of the alien worlds and the travel, the trip through the warp hole or whatever it was she went through, is so brilliant. It's amazing.
Yeah, the characters they came from different worlds, so to speak, as you were saying, one being faith and religion and one being in science. And the journey of this story brought them together because in the end, it was all about the fact that they both had significant experience that led them down the paths that they have led. But even though they had different lives, now they've come to a point where they can agree on certain things. You know, maybe you don't like deep dish pizza, but you really like pepperoni or mushroom. So we're going to agree on that. And after the experience she had, as you were saying, Matthew McConaughey's character, who's a man of faith, he started to see the fragile nature of her, because now people are questioning whether or not she saw what she did and experienced what she did, which is exactly what somebody from a science background would approach religion by.
Right, because she comes back from this experience with zero evidence.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see that she's gone anywhere because no time had passed. She was in a construct that resembled a ball. The ball dropped and fell into the ocean. And as far as everyone's concerned, they got her out, and that was the end of it. But she has a different story. Her story is that while she was in this capsule, she went somewhere, and she saw some stuff, and she spoke to something. And there's no evidence. What the recording device she had didn't work. There's a bit at the end, a little Twilight Zone punch, where someone says, did you know that her recording device didn't just stop working? It recorded for like 18 minutes or something.
Oh, yeah, and those were the government types that were talking to each other.
Yeah. So there's like this 18-minute recording of nothing.
Oh, no, 18 hours.
Oh, 18 hours, okay.
They say it's what interests me. It's like, it's interesting that it not only recorded static, but approximately 18 hours of it.
Right. But the whole movie, from the beginning to, she first hears the sound from the array of these recording things, they're telescopes or sound recording devices, and to the whole way, it's slowly revealed to you what's coming through. It's a noise, it's a signal. No, the signal has information. What's the information? And finally, they figure out a way to decode it, and the first thing they see is a Nazi cross.
Yes.
So it's a roller coaster ride. I think it was great that her character totally believes she's going to be the one picked to ride in this construct, that the signal has sent them the directions to make, and suddenly, no, they don't pick her. They pick Tom Skerritt, and the disappointment is, but she becomes the good soldier and goes on as a consultant until Skerritt's character dies in a terrorist attack, and finally they have, they got to pick her. She's the only one else who could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it's all a great story with grand scope and absolutely great performances. When Foster is testifying in the courtroom at the end and trying to tell people what she believes she saw, that is genius stuff right there. That is good stuff. That is incredible acting.
Yeah, and up until his passing, because Carl Sagan was still alive while the film was being made, or put together at least, the intent was that he would have a cameo in that committee, on that panel, and of course, fate played a role in that, and unfortunately he was no longer with us at the time. But when Contact came out, it was a very important time for a lot of folks. And of course, as a sci-fi nerd, I will have to point this out. Just 2 years before Contact came out, Star Trek started a new installment in its franchise, and for the very first time ever, it had a woman captain. And not only did it have a woman captain, but she was a scientist. So the parallels are quite strong that something like this would shortly thereafter come down the pike. So, a couple of takeaways, a little bit of trivia about this movie that some might find interesting. The sound effect that was used when they received the signal from the alien civilization was actually taken from a existing sound effect from Doctor Who, the sound of the ship traveling. It was put through the computer, and they altered it slightly, but it has a lot of similarities. And some of the other things that occurred in the movie were purely tributes to Dr. Carl Sagan. When Jodie Foster wore an outfit quite similar to what I am here on YouTube. She wore a tweed jacket with a turtleneck, which is something that was very...
Wait a minute. This is... No, she didn't wear that, did she?
She did.
Okay.
When she went to her last round of appearances to drive up donations and get investors, she was in a large conference room with a round table, and that's when she came to the attention of the eccentric entrepreneur. But she was wearing a outfit very similar to what Dr. Sagan was known to have worn, because he was a man of simple style. Some would say that he, in our time, the persons who have resembled his dresses, someone like Steve Jobs would always be just t-shirt and jeans kind of a thing, comfort level. But tribute to Dr. Sagan in that. And let's see, the armor that Jodie Foster wore when she was going to be traveling had a very Knights of the Round Table look to it. In fact, the art was inspired by images of Joan of Arc. And but yes, Contact is a very powerful movie, as we were saying, comparing the two paths of faith, science, and religion, and the similarities between. And it even has a message from the alien civilization that, of course, that you're not alone.
And for those of you who are just too young to have known Carl Sagan, he was beloved by his students because he was so captivating. He was able to communicate grand things in an easy to understand, entertaining way. He was a very charismatic teacher, and out of that came a chance for him to communicate more of this to many more people when he and others funded I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 mini-series called Cosmos, which was remade more recently by today's great thinker. I can't think of his name.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, Sagan had a very characteristic way of speaking, and people just loved it, and he became a darling of talk shows. So he made many appearances on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and he became famous for saying, people would imitate him by saying billions. He may have said it only once in Cosmos, saying billions of stars, but that became a thing, billions. And when people wanted to say there's a whole lot of things, people would say in his voice, billions of hamburgers, or whatever. It just was a thing. So if you ever wanted to see Sagan himself, find Cosmos, and you'll see why people loved him.
Oh, yeah, and taking it back a moment, another time when Dr. Sagan was imitated was in a film that we've discussed in the past right here on Matinee Minutia. The 1987 film with Dan Aykroyd and Kim Basinger, My Stepmother is an Alien. He was prank calling one of the actually Dan Aykroyd's character's boss, so that he could sneak into the lab. But anyways, all right. So, but yes, I would be remiss if I did not mention, I don't think they could have picked a better actor to play the eccentric entrepreneur S.R. Haddon. Mr. John Hurt played this role so brilliantly, and I read that he was told that Haddon was the sort of person that was like, if you could imagine, Bill Gates if he lost his mind. And I think that the single greatest moment of the whole film is when Ellie, Jodie Foster's character, finds herself aboard Haddon's private jet after this accident has occurred, this travesty where the American version of the machine is just destroyed through a terrorist attack. And he says to her, "They still want an American to go, Doctor. The first rule in government spending. Why have one when you could have two at twice the price?"
It was a great reveal, because that's when it was revealed that the whole time the Americans had been making this machine, I guess in Japan, he funded a second machine. So when the first one got destroyed in an explosion by that terrible Gary Busey, I mean Jake Busey, suddenly we find out, here's another machine.
Oh, and he does it. He delivers the line so well too. It's just so. I don't want to say methodical, but maniacal. He says he's talking about the employees that built the other machine, and he's like, who also just so happened to be recently acquired wholly owned subsidiaries of his company. He's like, Haddon Industries. And Jodie Foster says it in chorus with him as he says the name of his company, and she's like, well, of course, what other company? So Toppie, here we are out at the lobby, and this is where we tell folks about other programs they might enjoy if they like Contact. And, if you haven't seen it, have you been living under a rock? This film's 26 years old, people, and the book came out in 1985. I think that the Challenger disaster had not yet happened. I think that Dr. Sagan's book came out when the spirit of the Challenger was still very much alive. All right, so I'll go first. I'm going to recommend a film from more recent years. This is from 2018. It's also a drama mystery with some sci-fi. Stars the former stars of the X-Files and more recently Netflix's Sex Education, Gillian Anderson. It's about a college student who sees a UFO and uses his exceptional math skills to investigate the sighting with his friends, while the FBI follows closely behind, in a film called just simply UFO from 2018.
All right, good choice. I need to see that. Oddly enough, the movie I picked stars Gillian Anderson. And it's the X-Files, and at first you might think, but I think the X-Files captures, in a completely different way, the same scope of wonderment and conspiracy and terrorism that Contact dishes up. I similar enough in that way that, to me, I think if you enjoyed Contact, you'd like the original X-Files movie from 1988.
Oh, 98, just a year after Contact.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, so that's what I'd recommend.
All right. So, Toppie, here we are, and before we say goodnight, we've got to tell our folks, our listeners, what's coming up next. So if you would be so kind, grab that bag of coins the magician left us.
All right, here we go.
Okay, we're going to put that in the machine and find out what's coming up next.
Ooh, a capsule.
Ooh.
All right, allow me to read what's inside. A late 80s drama. Folks, it's going to be a sci-fi thriller again. And it's going to be, this is a little obscure, but it's kind of fun. You're not going to believe who's in it. It's Chris Christopherson. Who's his co-star? You might ask. Why, it's Cheryl Ladd. And the movie is called Millennium. And it's by the director of Logan's Run and The Martians Chronicles. And it's about an NTSB investigator seeking the cause of an airline disaster who meets a warrior woman from 1,000 years in the future. So next time, that would be Friday, July 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We do it live, folks. And we're going to see and talk about Millennium.
Ooh, you know, one has to wonder. It's like the chicken and the egg. Which came first, the hole in the ozone layer or Cheryl Ladd's hairdo in this movie?
We'll find out. Tune in next time and find out.
Ooh, all right. Okay, if you would, say goodnight in the ways of the old days of radio.
Good night, Gracie.
Thank you for listening to Matinee Minutia.
Our show streams live on the first and third Friday of the month.
Go to matineeminutia.com. Click the YouTube icon for live video. Enter Discord or chat.
You can find our show anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Visit our webpage at matineeminutia.com.
Tweet us on Twitter at Matinee Minutia.
Find our group on Facebook.
Have an idea for a show? Or why not let us know how we're doing?
Email us at matineeminutia@gmail.com.